Welcome to Career Canvas with Sandra Yuk-Sim Wu, where creativity meets strategy to shape a career and life you love. Today's guest is a friend, Mathis Vuillermin. When I found out his age, let's just say I'm significantly older, I was blown away by his maturity, clarity, and depth of insight. Mathis is the co-founder of Business Minds Media, a platform rooted in curiosity, purpose, and action. He's a dynamic professional who learns fast, adapts with agility, and brings ideas to life. With over 5 years of experience spanning public policy, digital media, strategic communications, and international leadership, Mathis blends creativity, strategy, and analytical thinking to drive meaningful impact. At the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, CRTC, he contributed to Canada's broadcasting reform and was part of the award-winning team that received the Major Project Award 2024 for excellence in complex national initiatives. Through Business Minds Media, Mathis has produced over 30 interviews with influential leaders across Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, including the Honourable David Lametti, former Minister of Justice, now Counsel at Fasken, Vanessa Cherenfant, Chief Strategy Officer at VIA Rail, and Daniel Henkel, renowned entrepreneur and newly appointed senator. He also serves as Vice President of the International Circle of Young Leaders, fostering global connections in entrepreneurship, trade, and diplomacy. In this episode, we explore how Mathis decides which opportunities to say yes to, how he builds confidence when entering new roles or sectors, and his take on cultural awareness between French and North American workplaces. He also shares what skills he believes will always remain relevant, regardless of how the world changes. Let's dive into his journey and reflections on leadership, media, and global impact, and start painting the canvas of your career, one bold stroke at a time.
Mathis, thank you for joining me for this episode, and thank you for spending a lot of time to help me to get everything organized. Podcast is a new type of communication for me, and I have a lot to learn from you. You are very active in public policy, media production, and also leadership. So I would like to know, while you're developing your career, how do you determine which opportunity to say no to or to say yes to?
Thank you, Sandra, for the invitation, and it's a pleasure always to help you also set up the podcast. It's good to share that collaboration with you. How to choose, which career to focus on and the different opportunities. For me, the key is really going with the flow. So I follow opportunities as they come, but I also sometimes create my own opportunities. I'll give you an example of my current work. So I currently work as a senior analyst at the CRTC, the Radio Television Commission of Canada. And before working there, I didn't really know it existed. And I've been there for 2 years. So how did I end up there? I was working previously in another department in the government, and then I ended up knowing kind of positions, the COs, so commerce officers, and I applied, and then I saw the CRTC existed, and then I realized that the CRTC, the work they do was aligned with my master thesis. You see, the stars aligned naturally towards the CRTC for me. But I didn't plan okay, I want to work at the CRTC. That's one. Secondly, I said, create your own opportunities. That's the example of Business Mind Media, as you were saying. I love video creation. I'm interested in business. I love meeting people. I love learning, creating videos and content. And so with one of my friends that I met in university, we said, hey, why not create our own little media, and interview business leaders to get their insight on leadership and various topics. And so we created our own opportunities, and now we've interviewed over 30 people, full interesting people, because those kind of leaders will also help you grow, kind of enhance your own skills. And so I would say also that, kind of follow interesting projects or people.
Right now, you are working at the Canadian Television and Telecommunication Commission.
Yes.
Yeah. And then when you're there, you participated in a $200 million Canadian broadcasting reform.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you and your team got an award.
Yes.
And then after that, you started your own channel. The name of the channel is called Business Mind. Can you share some of the advice from those leaders? Have they changed your mind or give you a new definition of success.
That we learn so much about the perspective of major leaders. One thing that comes to mind is you always, be curious. You know a lot of things that are not related to your own specific role. You're an accountant, but if you also like geopolitics, then who knows, maybe you'll end up working in the OECD, because you also like that, or the UN. Having that kind of curiosity also brings a drive to any candidate when you're doing interviewing process and stuff. And that's something that all the leaders I interviewed really were looking for. Big time CEOs or people that are extremely successful and they are in the end of their career and they say, follow your dreams. Okay, yeah, but you're in a comfortable position. When I'm in my 20s or early 30s, it's a bit more difficult, and we all have like mortgage or rent to pay, food, and we all have financial commitments. So when they say follow your dreams, it's a bit harder. But when you talk to these people and you say follow your dreams, it can be, creating your own opportunities, but it can be a lot of different things, and everyone has a different risk aversion. So know your risk aversion and then be able to work in that kind of framework of risk that you're able to do. And yeah, following your dream is being happy at work, being happy in what you do. And so that was something that came back a lot. And these leaders that are successful, some of them took huge risk in their career, and something that sometimes if you were in their position at that time, you would say like, that is unreasonable. Why did you take that decision? You're building a company, it works well, and then you say, I don't like it anymore, I'm changing completely and start from scratch and having a pay cut or at least no salary at all to start something new. And then that worked and they were successful, and that's how they ended up, and I have a lot of people work in big consulting firms, at great salaries, great positions, worldwide, and then they say, I don't like it anymore, I'm going to do my own little business of, for a year you built your thing, you don't have any income coming in, and you took a lot of risk. But then when you look at that 20 years later, it's like, oh, it looks easy, but they took the risk at that time, at the time that I am right now, for example, so I am willing to take some risk.
Do you have a sort of a time frame for yourself? Like how long you give yourself to try a new job, new role, a new project?
It's a very good question, actually. And I got that advice actually from Michael Wernick, which is the former clerk of Privy Council of Canada. So he did the transition between the Harper government and Trudeau government. And the clerk is for those that are not very familiar with the politics or the way government works in Canada, the clerk of Privy Council is the top bureaucrat of Canada. So his boss is the prime minister, and he's the boss of all of the public sector. And so he told me, you should stay in a job between, at least minimum 12 to 18 months. So you have time to do accomplishments. So you have things to share in interviews. You have things to share in your accomplishment and the skills you built in that position. 1 year and a half, 2 years would be the ideal minimum time frame. Of course, you can stay longer, and if you like, you can stay your whole life. Full interesting people, full interesting project, and then the success will come naturally. Maybe he started 40 years ago, so it was maybe a bit different, but still, he ended up at the top of the government. He started as a student. And so that's a way of seeing job opportunity and seeking job opportunities. And it's important in your mind to kind of have always that kind of duality. When you're in your work, be focused in your work. And even though you are looking to change, while you're there, while you work, be focused on your work.
It's very important that in our current job or whatever we're doing currently, we need to add value.
Absolutely.
And create impact.
Absolutely.
Right? Whether or not it is my dream job. At the moment, it is my responsibility to perform. So later on, when there's new opportunity, you can carry that achievement and carry that success forward.
Absolutely.
And keep building on it.
Absolutely. And even though it's not your dream job anymore, maybe there was a time where it was maybe your dream job. When you started the position, always depends, but usually when you start a new position, you're excited about it. So you've been looking forward for that. And so when it starts, you're excited, but maybe 2-3 years after, maybe you're tired and it's kind of the routine and you kind of control that very well, and then you need something new. But still, remember that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was your dream job or it was an exciting new adventure. So stay motivated in terms of respect for your colleagues. Even though you're not motivated anymore, you always work with people. And if you have one of your teammates that is not working or doing, it's a burden for the other ones. So if you're not motivated anymore and you don't produce any work, your colleagues will feel it and you will add a burden on them. Just for that also, it is a good reason to stay motivated because it's not respectful for them.
Be a team player.
Absolutely.
Be a team player.
Absolutely. When you follow interesting projects and people and companies, rather than a title, then you're gonna accomplish a lot. And then you're gonna be versatile, stepping out of your comfort zone. That's where you're gonna learn a lot. Personally, I think is the best to try different.
You appear to me, you're a very, very confident person. So how do you develop that sense of confidence and self-awareness?
Yeah, it's it's a skill to develop, to be confident, especially when stepping in a new role. It's normal to feel the imposter syndrome when you start. It is not normal to feel the imposter syndrome after like a year, because at the beginning it adds a little, I would say, like a positive pressure to perform. So you would probably overperform because of the imposter syndrome. But then if you continue to feel that, there's an issue, either like with the job, the work environment, or the colleagues or something. You should not still feel that you're an imposter syndrome after a year, because you've done your transition, you've done some accomplishment already. When I start a new job, when I apply to jobs that I feel have the skills already. I don't apply to be a CEO. I don't apply to jobs that don't fit with my resume, and my skills and what I'm able to do. So that's your first step, make your research correct. Again, going back to self-assessment, know yourself, know what you're capable of. And then in the first 3 months, the first 90 days, try to have some early wins, because that will help. So it will help you, build some early wins, but it will also help your boss and your colleagues. And it's extremely important, from the famous book, The First 90 Days from Michael D. Watkins, that I recommend to everyone in business or in any field. As soon as you change job, you have to kind of assess all of that. You have to focus on few key things, learning about the work environment, the work dynamic, secure some early wins, and understand what would be the important early wins for my position, but also like towards my boss. So that so it's a lot of understanding and kind of reading the situation. And that book is extremely useful for that. Make sure to be a support for new employees. Being a team player is extremely important in that part too. Be supportive, be an ally as much as you. So it's important to kind of be able to read people and be able to say, okay, maybe this person needs help, to make sure that they build their confidence.
Feel confident by helping people be ally to others.
Because you build your confidence from the social around you, the people around you. You can think you're the best in the world, but if no one says you're the best, I'm not sure you will think you're the best for a long time. Unless you have an ego that is massive. But in general, the confidence comes from the interaction we get with people.
Other people are the mirrors. Who we are, we rely on other people to reflect it, to validate. Because we can say, I'm very confident.
Yeah.
But then if other people say, wow, but...
Exactly. And even though you build a protection shield around you and you're extremely strong and sure about yourself, it will always affect you. And if they start reading all of that, it's very difficult. There's a way of giving feedback that are different depending on the culture. But being able to receive feedback builds my confidence, because I don't think I'm the best in everything I do. I know there's some things that I'm pretty good at, some things that I'm less good at. I know what I should improve, and I know where are my strengths. And when I get feedback, constructive, time to say, oh, that was very good, perfect. That adds to the confidence. Sometimes I know already, and it just confirms my self-assessment of myself and my skills. And sometimes something new that I never thought of it.
You talked about follow interesting people, be a team player, and also have a self-assessment. Know your strength, and also know your personality type. Have you experienced setback or disappointment? Like, what did you learn from setback and disappointment?
Yeah, I think it's important, and even the most successful people have setbacks, and there's always another side of the coin. Successful and then failure. And it's important to talk about it and become more and more resilient. So I did my second master's in Vienna, in Austria, and my plan was to then stay in Europe and work in Europe. While I was in Vienna, I was traveling almost every weekend to some surrounding countries and working on my master's thesis, because I wanted to have the summer free, and I was completely done. Like I was the first one in the program to give this thesis back, like in June. It was super early. So because of that, I didn't spend any second looking for a job in Europe, because I had other priorities. And so I said, okay, I'm going to come back to Canada. I had my former director offered me a promotion. So I came back to Canada and said, I'm going to look for another job then in Europe. It will be fine. I have the European passport. Easy. Looks like it's not that easy, honestly. Because people see Canada, even though you say like, hey, I am also French, I can work in Europe, no problem. Probably the AI that is scanning the resume or the hiring managers are like, oh, Canadian, too complicated, next. It's much harder than I would expect, and that was a setback. 3 years later, I'm still here in Canada. You always have to find what's the positive thing about it. And that kind of failure of finding a job in Europe had some very positive impact, because then I got my job at the CRTC. So a lot of things happened while I was not in Europe. It happened for a reason. I got to experience working with the Minister's Office for Correctional Service, Public Safety. Then I got to work with the CRTC, and I had an impact on the audiovisual industry. The big reform on streaming services and all of that. So do I regret? I don't think so. My career and my life would have been different if I had applied for jobs right away in Vienna or in Europe in general. But I don't regret it because I did a lot of great things in the meantime, met a lot of great people. And on Business Minds, that's another example. When we reach out to people, half of them, no answer. And then of that second half that is positive, half of that won't work because of scheduling issues. So we work with the last 25% that says yes and that are interesting. So it's a lot of work, and at first we didn't know what to expect. And now we know. We focus and we put our energy on the one that are saying, I am interested. Let's have a call. Canalize your energy on those specific you can control. Focus on where you can work towards your goal with that. Having great people on the podcast. And so we focused on that, on the great guests that we have.
If you can go back in time, like 5 years back, and give yourself a advice, what would you tell yourself?
I mentioned it a bit at the beginning of the interview. You can learn any hard skills. If I have to learn Python or SQL, I can learn it on YouTube or with an online class of college or university. The soft skills are much harder to learn, but they can be developed. Creating a new network is very difficult. And when you are studying, you're meeting so many people that will go in a bunch of different directions in all the industries and different companies. And that's where you can build a network. The value is that you are building a relationship with people that then you can reach out to. And it's important when you are building that kind of network, give much more than you receive, because then it will come back naturally. Be in the look for also the others. They will do the same for you. If you're always just asking for favors from people, won't work, and they will be tired of you one day and they'll be like, hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore. It's a one-way relation. So I guess networking would be something I would do even more. Having a network within your industry or having a network internationally, very diverse, is extremely important. I have some friends that are extremely successful that didn't go to any parties. You build that also these relationships when you're working on school projects, even more because you see how people work.
Also to know the people.
Yes.
To have an interest of other people's life, what inspired them, what they want to achieve.
It's more like a reason to meet. Maybe it's a bit of a French thing because we always hang out in cafes and it's a very social life. But I think even if you're not French, it's important to still meet people for work and for life. And so how do you meet people? It's through activity. Is it French? I don't know. Maybe there's a bit of that. That's how I made a lot of my good friends. But I also met some friends even with like student organizations. I was involved into a lot of student clubs. And that's where I met people also. And every little student club is kind of a little startup or company. See how you collaborate with other people. What's your managing style? I'll give an example. I am on a board. I'm actually the vice president of the International Circle of Young Leaders of Montreal, which is affiliated to the Economic Forum that are organizing international conferences. And when there was an empty spot on the board, I thought of one of my friends. That is not a friend that I text every month. It's not a close friend, but it's someone I've met when I was studying. We collaborated through the student leadership. And then I thought, hey, that would be a good one for this person. And so I texted him, hey, would you be interested? And then, we got some different candidacy for the role, and it's the one that got it. I didn't do any favorism after that. I said it's my friend, so I rather not take a decision. But he was the most competent one. But I referred him and I thought of him because it was aligned with his profile. And so that's what I say, like share and give back to your network. That's the kind of thing.
You have worked in Europe before. How has working internationally and across different cultures shaped your perspective on leadership and collaboration?
Good question. Cultural leadership is something extremely important, especially nowadays. We're living in a connected world. Wherever you work, you're going to find someone from another country, another culture. So it's important to be able to navigate through the cultural intelligence. That is something that you are building through time. And cultural intelligence is how you are aware of the different cultures and how do you adapt to different cultures to collaborate with them. And I would recommend everyone that is listening to that to read about cultural intelligence in any globalized environment. Going back to more about Europe itself, compared to North America, I feel like Europeans can be a bit more direct. Great for some personalities, not great for others. I worked in Vienna with Austrians. So we know, Austrians and German, they have this thing of being like, oh, they are so organized, but it's real. They are really organized. And it's If you like organization, it is so fun to see that. We started brainstorming, and there was one of my colleagues that was in front of a whiteboard with different colors, with the pens with different colors, and he started to, as long as we were starting to talk and brainstorm, was organizing in bubbles, and like that's logistic, that is guest management, that is food, that is with different colors, and he was just noting the thing while we were talking. And so when we finished the like 2-3 hour brainstorm, just have that whiteboard that is just saying everything, organized by color, by theme, by kind of sector. And so that was great. It's also important, going back to cultural intelligence, it's important to listen twice as much as we speak. We have 2 ears for 1 mouth. By listening more, you're going to catch those little subtleties of the different cultures and how people work, rather than if you talk too much, then you're going to impose to everyone. The delivering of the feedback is the key. Because no one's perfect. We all have things to improve. So it's important to be able to share that with other people. And if you deliver it wrong for someone, it can really hurt a relationship and a work relationship. And it can be really bad for the productivity of the team. I would say that is extremely important. It's really key to understand, how to deliver feedback.
In North America, we like the sandwich approach. And then you mentioned, perhaps in French culture, it's more direct.
Yep.
And then I think in Asian culture, we like to tell story. We like to tell story or metaphor.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I'm talking about you, but then somehow I will talk about the mountain, the water, the weather, a storm. Yeah.
So you see, these are all different ways of delivering feedback. See, but if you're not aware of that, you're gonna be like, why is there a story now? And you won't understand it. It's about you.
Yeah.
So it's important to be aware of all those things. And again, if you listen more, then you're gonna understand more than you if you just speak. So it goes back to that.
Okay. In this constantly changing world, technology, markets, global issue, what skill do you believe will always stay relevant no matter what? You mentioned relationship building. Is there anything else that you will give advice to people who are developing their career?
Absolutely. Curiosity. The curiosity brings you anywhere you want, because you can, you're reading about things, you're going to know different things. Being curious is a drive to anything in life. So curiosity, key. I would also say creativity, because that is something AI can't do.
Cannot.
Yeah, cannot do. Because, AI is coming more and more into jobs. We always say like AI will use a lot of jobs we see with ChatGPT or like Microsoft Copilot, the way now it's building, slide deck from an Excel sheet in 10 seconds, mind blowing. But the creativity, the way of thinking creatively, thinking of solutions creatively, that is a part, in my opinion, that AI won't be able to do that well as a human, because we have that kind of awareness of the environment around. And if we get that creativity inside, then we're able to innovate much more. And AI is coming from innovation. It's 0 and 1. It has no emotion. But this was coming from the creativity and the innovation of people. You need to be adaptable because the world is changing. AI is coming right now. Right now it's AI, for example. You need to be adaptable. Using AI at your work, understanding how AI works. Understanding how AI works doesn't mean to be able to code AI or anything, but being able to prompt correctly in AI. How can you leverage that at your work? Understanding the impact that it can have on your work, being able to adapt. And if you move somewhere, if I was to move, for example, in Europe, I would for sure increase my German knowledge because it's important. You have to do business with Germany. So, be adaptable in terms of languages, in terms of skills. I talked a lot about coding. Python, SQL are important skills to have if you need to. So if you see going in that direction, learn it by yourself.
What is the biggest misconception they may have about success?
It's the easiest when you think about success. You think about, making X amount of money by this age. This is the classic success that we see. I have a house, I have a car, I have a boat. This is the classic success. American success. I think that is a very wrong misconception of success. Success is doing something that you like every day, and that has a strong value for you. So that will be success. I try always to think forward into in 30 years, 40 years, whatever, later in my life, how would I see my current decisions? And sometimes it means not extremely logical per se, I would say, right now, but in long term, it makes sense. So I would say the big misconception of success when you're young is just about money. I mean, of course, money is important. You need the money for anything, buying food, shelter, But that's not all. Everyone has to find their balance, and it's different for everyone. Again, I come back to be self-aware what you want to do, and then you're going to be able to build your success.
What is your next ambition that you would love to pursue in the future?
My next ambition.
Yeah. Forget about title, like just passion.
On short term, I would love to move back to Europe, develop some network there, work in Europe, either in some diplomatic world as for the OECD, for example, the UN, or simply in business. In Europe, where I feel like this need of going back to my roots and developing that cultural partners that I feel with Europe and France. Long term, kind of a dream. The dream would be to have my own company. And if I would be even more picky on what kind of company, it would be a movie production studio. Mm-hmm. That would be the ultimate dream. But I mean, it's complicated. A movie costs a lot to produce. It's a dream. I don't know how that would happen. It's a passion. Again, it's following my passion. Every day would be fun, So it's something. Am I ready to do that right now? No. Will I be ready later? Maybe. Possible. If some opportunities arise, or if I see that I could create that opportunity, something I keep in mind. I was saying, I'm focused on my job now, but I have that in mind on the back.
You have actually produced several short films. Interesting, you mentioned it. But I'm thinking the way AI is going is very feasible. That AI as a tool can help you to do a lot of work during the production. It's possible that you can have a small team or even a one-man team.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we look at some movies that are done now that won some Oscars. A few years ago, there was Everything Everywhere All at Once. Mm-hmm. That won Oscars for a lot of categories. There's a lot of special effects in that movie. And that was done, don't quote me, but I think by a team of 2 people in their room during the pandemic. It was not a big studio.
Yeah.
And it won a lot of Oscars for best movie. I think it won also best special effect. I don't want to say 2 random dudes, but 2 guys. I'm not sure if they were also the writers or the directors of the movies, it doesn't look amateur, it is professional. And now that also something with internet, it kind of is accessible to everyone to learn special effects. So I have to think limitation of what can I do, then I have to write in that frame. But I've learned through YouTube, and these kind of things. I never took any cinema class. And none of the people on my team were in cinema. I was studying in business, another friend also business, I had another friend in politics, another one in a lawyer. None of us were in cinema. Nothing stops you. You want to do entrepreneurship? Well, start your company. You're going to learn on the way. And every time you start something, you pay an ignorance tax. And that's part of it. You just have to be aware of it, because when you start something and you don't know, then you're going to make mistakes. And so that's every time you pay this ignorance tax. That's the learning process.
So congratulations for your success.
Thank you.
Yep, keep going. It's very inspirational.
Yeah, and it's important, I think, to have that energy of being able to separate your mind and be focused on different things at the same time. Again, self-awareness. What are your priorities? And then you focus on those. At the beginning, it's difficult to shift. When I was starting my master and I was still working for the government, I was working part-time. And when you are in a group work for university, and then, it's 11, let's start, and I'm starting my work. You're in the middle of a project. Shut it down, focus on work. The shift was very difficult. But after, 2 weeks, I got used to it. And then I'm able to shift very quickly to different mindset.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mathis, for such an insightful and energizing conversation. From global policy to digital media, and from youth leadership to ethical innovation, his journey is a powerful reminder that impact happens at any age when driven by clarity, curiosity, and purpose. Whether it's navigating cross-cultural dynamics, choosing the right opportunities, or building platforms that inspire change, Mathis shows us what it means to lead with intention in a rapidly evolving world. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or colleague. And don't forget to subscribe or follow. More bold voices are coming your way on Career Canvas, where we explore careers shaped by creativity, strategy, and vision. Until next time, keep painting the canvas of your career, one bold stroke at a time.